Hi, I'm Keith Morey, Provo City's Economic Development Director, and we're here for the Provo Advantage this month talking with Brandon Fugal, the chairman of Colliers International and the owner of Aerodynamic.
It's good to be
here
with you.
in Provo, which is a great asset here in our community. Brandon, several months ago, a year or so ago, you talked a little bit about Provo City, and you mentioned that from your perspective, Provo City is the central business district for Utah County. And we couldn't agree more. I mean, we think our role here in the county is essential and our contribution to the state as well. But we've talked a lot about the startup environment that's rich here in Provo too.
Yeah.
And we wanted to just pick your brain a little bit about, from your perspective, what you think that history of tech development is that really kind of began in a lot of ways here in Provo, Utah, at Brigham Young University, and how that's affected the real estate market.
Yeah, well, not only is Provo the central business district of Utah County, but it has been the cradle of innovation for decades. So many of our great companies that fueled our current venture environment and a lot of the technology growth were really outgrowths of BYU, Eyring Research, and a host of others right here in Provo, Utah. The Provo-Orem MSA continues to be recognized nationwide as a leading submarket area, and it's no surprise that you have so many headquartered companies still to this day fueling a lot of that growth.
Yeah, that's outstanding. For whatever reason, maybe it's because of the pioneers that established Utah, decades and decades ago, that spirit and that kind of connection to genealogy has always been really important to us. And we've talked a lot about that internally, and about the reality that I sit at my computer every day and type and may not remember the fact that WordPerfect and Novell were industry leaders that came out of Brigham Young University in the 70s and 80s right here in the Provo-Orem area. Indeed.
Well, and the other companies that have grown, like Ancestry, you talk about the pioneering spirit and that entrepreneurial drive that is just embedded in this market and in this community. Companies like Ancestry, which is now, I think, a $5-6 billion global enterprise, had their start here as well. In fact, they had their campus expansion for, over a decade here in Provo. And that legacy, that heritage is alive and well today.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I had someone comment recently that, are we concerned about the tech environment right now, where you're seeing some tech companies scale back? And my comment was, or my thought was, and I'd love to hear your perspective, if you were to take a snapshot in time when Novell and WordPerfect sold off in the 70s and 80s, it might have looked very bleak, except that intellectual capital stayed here in our area.
Sure.
And became hungry for new tech, and so they spun off all the other companies that we see around us today, like Domo, Podium, Qualtrics, on and on and on. That list just goes on and on.
Yeah, well, even though WordPerfect sold in the early 90s and Novell ended up sunsetting in the late 90s following the build of their tower in East Bay, Provo, we've seen some of our most exciting growth since that time. Qualtrics with its global headquarters. You have Vivint also having their global headquarters and expansion centered here in Provo, and so many others that bring, I think, a more diversified growth strategy to this market. We're not just tech. You take this Provo airport area, for example, Duncan Aviation, which operates one of the premier aircraft management and maintenance facilities right down the runway from our facility here at Aerodynamic, is one of so many examples of resource here in Provo that is not necessarily dependent upon tech and delves into the manufacturing, health and wellness segment, and others that are also drivers. The largest headquarters in downtown Provo is Nu Skin.
Yeah, that's exactly
Nu
right.
Skin, with its global footprint as a leading health and wellness provider, is another example of excellence in Provo, and why this community will continue to lead not only the state of Utah, but the rest of the country.
Yeah, I agree. We've had people ask us why they think Provo continues to lead in these areas, and from my perspective, there's this entrepreneurial spirit that's embedded in the fabric of who we are. I mean, it begins very young when you've got parents who are tech developers or professors at Brigham Young University and they have children. Those children tend to think the same way, and so as they grow up, instead of being accustomed to just going out and buying a new thing, they start thinking of, well, how can I make my own thing? And so there's a lot of spin-off development that continually happens generation after generation because that spirit's so alive and fertile in the soil that we have here.
Right, and in the public-private partnerships that take place. We have a business-friendly community that is unique, that helps encourage and drive business. You look at downtown Provo and the incredible redevelopment that has taken place. Additional hotels, office towers, and other services and amenities that you just don't find in any other metro across the Wasatch Front. I mean, where else can you find that concentration of restaurants and hospitality within footsteps of a world-class convention center?
No, I feel the same way. There are a lot of other places in the state of Utah or Utah County where you can work, but Provo's a place where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think if you come to our downtown and experience the work environment that's here and the 80 plus restaurants that are in the downtown environment, it really becomes a place that you want to be.
So it's exciting to be part of so many unique projects, and so much of it really comes back to Provo. And it comes back to this being a center of gravity for not only innovation, but I think that pioneering spirit that will lead us into the future.
Well, Brandon, you're a wealth of information and an incredible friend, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate your contribution here in our community, your dedication to what we do, your representation of what we think is important in our community. And there's a lot of Provo advantages that we talk about month after month, but you truly are what we would consider a great Provo advantage, and we're thankful for your participation in our community.
Well, I'm fortunate to be working here with you, fortunate to be working with great developers, entrepreneurs, business leaders to really help elevate our community. I think we're just getting warmed up.
I do too. And that's the Provo Advantage. We're going to talk more in upcoming months about startup environment that's so rich and robust here in our community. We thank Brandon for being with us today to talk about how that influence has impacted the state.
See you later.